Hi guys, so I'm going to be giving you a walkthrough for a directed writing question today. There's some difficult skills required for this question, so it's important that you understand these skills and the steps needed to ensure you succeed with this question. This video will be using last year's paper titled The Zookeeper, so please do read that before watching the rest of this video. Before we start, as a general rule of thumb, because I don't think I mentioned it in my previous video, you should try and find 5 bits of information for each bullet point. That's 5 explicit ideas. Generally, for the last bullet point, you will more than likely be required to infer based on what you have read throughout the text, and your inferences, of course, will be based on the whole story. When having to assume the role of a character, it's really crucial you understand the character that's being presented to us, because this will inform your language, it will inform your tone, your sentence structure, punctuation, everything. Okay, so make sure you do read the story a couple of times to ensure you understand how the writer is presenting whatever character it is. Once you've read The Zookeeper, you'll soon realise that we are dealing with a pretty sorrowful character. He's feeling dejected. There's a sense of loneliness almost. He's uncertain of his future, him being the last human left on the planet. As such, you need to take into consideration all of this information to successfully create a convincing voice and character. And that's what examiners want to see. That's what Cambridge want to see. Remember, you are writing as a character. You are assuming the role of a character. You are not writing as a 16-year-old student. So let's look at 2019's paper and the task. Remember, it's worth 25 marks from 2020 onwards, so it's even more crucial you get this question right. It might be worth noting that this paper, gosh, the Twitter sphere just went into meltdown, and it caused a lot of problems for students. Lots of students missing the fact that the line was robotic, and indeed the father and the son. So that really has some quite drastic repercussions in terms of being able to answer the writer's effect question and this question as well. So it's really important that you do read the text carefully and you understand what is going on. I should mention that before tackling any directed writing task, it's really important that you are able to write a formal letter or an informal letter or a newspaper article, or in this case a journal, because if you can't write each of the non-fiction types successfully away from an exam task, you're probably going to struggle. Okay, so the features of journal writing before we start looking at the paper. The purpose is, it's to reflect. It's a personal piece of writing, and what you write down should reflect that. Some things I would expect from my students' work if I were marking them. Of course, that first person voice is going to come through because it's a personal piece of writing, as I've just said. That self-reflective tone, emotive language, often written in the past tense, but in the case of this question, bullet point 3 does say what you think the future may hold for you, so you may want to write in future tense as well. Rhetorical questions, and of course a variety of punctuation and sentence types. And it doesn't matter what directed writing tasks you get, vocabulary, punctuation, sentence types, the mechanics of your writing, if you like, are always going to be so important if you want to get those top marks. So for this video, I will be looking at, see if I can highlight it, this last bullet point And there's a lot to this. Well, there's a lot to all of the bullet points. If you've noticed, and is in bold. So it's asking you to look at two different things. So, it was a difficult paper. This third bullet point, it says, consider how things have changed for you and the world around you since you first started working at the zoo, and suggest what you think the future may hold for you. Now, I encourage my students, certainly, in the early days of looking at the directed writing questions, to produce something like this. And this may well help some of you out there. Obviously, you do not have time to produce something like this in the exam, but these are the kind of steps, those higher order skills that you are expected to do in 2 hours. So it's quite a lot to this question. So you want to think about what you are going to focus on. Okay, so my first focus is the fact that technology has advanced at a rapid rate. Okay, and the world that the zookeeper once knew has changed significantly. And my explicit details from the text is the quote, delivering rich nourishment. And that tells us, a lot about how robots technology have advanced at a significant rate. And what you need to do with each detail that you get from the text, you need to make maybe a couple of inferences. Okay, so your paragraph, none of your paragraphs should solely focus on explicit ideas. Cambridge expects you to get an explicit idea, kind of reword it, and then make some suitable inferences. So the fact that the father and son are not eating in the normal way that the zookeeper is used to, it's suggesting that, if you have a look here, robots, technology, as I've said, advancing at a rapid rate. The zookeeper is, for whatever reason, not able to be programmed himself. Maybe he feels like he no longer fits in. He feels like he's somewhat of an outcast. Perhaps he's on borrowed time. He's in ill health anyway. He doesn't have long at the zoo that he's worked at for all of his life, and maybe there's this sense of him feeling as though his position is somewhat redundant. How things have changed, okay? So there are fewer visitors to the zoo, okay? And the explicit detail I got from the text was, and the zoo was busier. You might infer from that people took a genuine interest in the animals. The zoo was more popular when it first opened, and eventually there may be no visitors. So again, this last inference addressing this last bit of the question there. So once you have your 5 bits of information from the text and you've made suitable inferences, or you have suitable inferences to make in your head, and you are ready to kind of bring everything together to create a voice, to start writing your journal, you might end up with something like this. Today was certainly a difficult day. That oh so familiar internal monologue which forces me to think about my future here plagued my mind once again. So straight away, what I am doing there, I am using a suitable self-reflective tone. Okay, there's emotive language, there's effective stylistic choices. It reads like a journal, and that's really important. We had 2 visitors, a father and his son, both robots, of course. What affected me the most was the young boy's fascination with me, the fact that he realised I was different, but couldn't quite determine why. So we are using explicit ideas and we are inferring. I guess his programming didn't allow for him to understand the world and its people before robots. These kind of sort of phrases, okay? I guess, of course, okay? All things that we would expect to find in journal writing. It left me feeling dejected. Okay, short sentence there. I sat down at one point and I just quietly considered how much the world has changed, how much people have changed, how much I have changed. So again, those stylistic choices, repetition for emphasis there to evoke the zookeeper's feelings. This place has been my livelihood for many years and has brought me an immeasurable amount of joy. But now I am aging and I'm starting to struggle, and it leaves me with a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach, one which won't go away. Technology is advancing at such a rapid rate, and it leaves me wondering if there's place on this earth for the last zookeeper. So from that model, which looks at the third bullet point, okay, we are using a range of explicit ideas from the text, and we are developing those ideas by making suitable inferences. Guys, I hope that's helped. As always, if you have any questions, please do leave them below. Thanks.